Okay. So once again, I try to give an introduction of full stack. So full stack technology does consist of a computer system, applications, which includes two separate web development parts, the front end and the back end. Okay, the front end includes everything that a client or site visitor can see and interact with. Whenever you visit a website, so basically you see the front end. You can never see backend. So because the backend is particularly in the backend, it's going to be running. Okay, but the results of the backend you get in the front end. So the front end includes everything that a client or site visitor can see and interact with. Okay, the backend refers to all the servers, database, and other internal architecture that drives the application. Okay, so whenever you talk about full stack, it's basically a web application. Whether it is full stack or web application. Okay, so in that case, you may be full stack developer, or you may be a front end developer, or simply maybe back end developer or database developer. So you contribute total web application in web application. Your roles may be back end developer or only database developer, okay, or only front end developer in the normal cases. But as a full stack developer, you are going to contribute in front end, in back end, and in the database. Okay, so basically, the backend refers to all the servers, databases, and other internal architecture that drives the application. So your application is going to be driven with this. Okay, so full stack developers are called professionals, both in front end and back end coding. Some spelling is wrong here. Professionals should be coming in that case, but so here just some NALS is missing. Sorry for that. So full stack developers are skilled professionals both in front end and back end coding. These professionals can be compared with Swiss Army knives. Okay, there's a knife called Swiss Army knife that can do multiple things. Mostly soldiers, they use it. They are called as actually Swiss Army knives. That means multiple things can be done by that particular knife. So the Swiss Army knife generally has a draw point, main blade, plus other types of blades and tools, such as a screwdriver, a can opener, a saw blade, a pair of scissors, and many others. That means if you take that knife, it has multiple features in that. Okay, a soldier can use that particular knife for different purposes. In the same way, full stack developer, you can compare as a Swiss Army knife. That means a full stack developer can do different things. Front-end development, back-end development, database development. So multiple things can be done by, full stack developer. Okay, so these are folded into the handle of the knife through a pivot point mechanism. So the term Swiss Army knife has entered popular culture as a metaphor for usefulness and adaptability. As a soldier is skilled to use different tools which are part of Swiss Army knife, the full stack developer is skilled with front-end and back-end technologies. A full stack developer should transition seamlessly from one development environment to the other. So continuous upgradation is required for full stack developer. Okay, you need to learn new techniques very quickly. So, a full stack developer should transition seamlessly from one development environment to the other. So that skill, you continuously have to get it. That means you need to upskill yourself. If required, reskilling is required. So that you need to do in the case of a full stack developer. Because technologies in the front end are changing, in the back end they are changing. Okay, so database also changing. So every day you have few changes. So frequently what happens, for better, to make a website running in a better way, we need to adopt the new changes. Whatever actually are getting evolved, we need to adopt to our applications. So a full stack developer should transition seamlessly, this point here, should seamlessly transition from one development environment to the other development environment. Okay, so front-end developers work with the visible parts of an application for web browsers and mobile devices. Okay. So whenever you talk about any front-end developer, they are going to be working on the, visible part of the application. That means HTML pages, their styling and interaction with the web page. Further, you use JavaScript, or sometimes you may develop single page applications. They are called as SPAs. Okay, in the case of SPA, you have only one page. In that page only you have everything. So today's modern front-end frameworks like Angular, React, and Vue are completely SPAs, single page application frameworks. So you just develop one page. In that page only you have multiple views. The view you can treat as actually a logical page. Okay, so loading the SPAs can be a little slow, but once loaded, it can work very fast. Okay, so the visible part of the application, web application, is developed by full stack developers. So full stack developers are going to work on the visible part of the application. It can be a web application, or it can be a mobile device, or it can be some other kind of thing. Even Windows applications also sometimes we develop. It has a user interface. So using that, what you do, you get connected to backend, and from there either you push data, or you may pull in data. So whatever data you are getting, you may render in the device. So if it's a web application, you render that in the browser. If it's a mobile application, you have apps, there you are going to be rendering it. Similarly, if it's a desktop application, so you are going to show that in the forms, Windows forms we say. Okay, so that way it is going to be visible part of the application. Front-end developers, they do that. Okay, so front-end applications are usually built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML is for content. Whenever you want to show some content, use actually HTML elements. What is basically HTML element? A HTML element is nothing but it is a element which starts with a starting tag and ends with a closing tag. So it has a beginning tag and it has a closing tag. A tag actually represented by less than symbol followed by name of the tag. Then you close the tag. Okay. You end actually the beginning of the tag. Then you may put some content. Then at the end you have a closing tag. For that you have less than symbol followed by slash, then tag name, and you put the greater than symbol. So like that you have actually elements. So elements are basically made with the like tags. Okay. So but often people use in an interchangeable way tag and element. Okay. So tag and element are loosely use it in an interchangeable manner. That means whether it's element or tag, sometimes you say it as a tag, or sometimes you say it as element. Okay, so basically HTML for what purpose? To show some content on the screen. Okay, you have various types of elements. With the help of that, you can be rendering content, or you can be selecting sometimes data from the form, from the user. Okay, already you may have data. That data you may show in the form. Similarly, you may be going from one page to another page. That can be called as anchor tag or anchor element. So with that, you can be navigating among the pages. From one page to another page, you may go. Okay, so for that purpose, we use here HTML. Then to style those elements, we require CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Okay, so using cascading style sheets, you style the elements. Okay, so we style elements with the help of the CSS. And JavaScript is for interactivity. When you want to interact with the web page, in such cases, you use the JavaScript. JavaScript runs only the browser. Okay, JavaScript is going to be running in a browser. And when you develop application, you don't need to install separately JavaScript. JavaScript is part of actually browser. So browsers must be implementing the JavaScript. Okay, so browsers also have actually rendering engines. To develop actually pages or content, they use actually some sort of rendering engines. With the help of rendering engines, it can be rendered. For example, take Edge or Internet Explorer. They use actually Trident. With Trident, they can be rendering. Okay. Similarly, sometime back, Chrome used to use a Bliss. Bliss is actually a rendering engine. With the help of that, it used to render content. Okay, so different browsers use different rendering engines. Some browsers may be fast, some browsers may be slow. Okay, so the algorithms basically, some browsers they use actually quadratic and some they use actually cubic kind of thing. So quadratic things are going to be fast when compared with the cubic kind of thing. Okay, so even in printing also they use, for example, take HPPCL, print control language. They use, cubic kind of thing. Whereas Adobe, you take Adobe, like you have PostScript printer, they use actually cubic and quadratic kind of thing. So rendering is very fast in the case of actually Adobe. So similarly, Chrome and Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, they may be using different rendering engines. But a developer need not know much about that, a full stack developer. Okay. But if you are contributing to, system software, in such cases, you need to know about all those things. Suppose you are developing a browser of your own. In such cases, you need to know about that. Otherwise, if you are a simple web developer, a full stack developer, okay, you can, without knowing even those details, you can develop. So just here, the term has come. That's why I was explaining about that. Fine. So, backend developers, in contrast, write the software code that communicates with servers, databases, or other proprietary software that conveys information to front-end interfaces. Normally, from front-end, you send a request. Okay, in the server, the request is actually accepted. If it is in the correct format, okay, then what it does exactly? It is going to response to that request. Suppose you want to retrieve your personal information. So that is stored somewhere in the database. In such case, what happens? First of all, the server is going to get a request from the web page or from the browser. So that request is actually handled by the server side. In that, first of all, you get the request. It can be get request or post request or similarly delete request or it may be put request. You have 4 kinds of requests in the case of actually web, in the case of HTTP. Okay, so post pairing is what? You can add a new set of data. Similarly, you have a put, you can modify with that. Delete you have, with the help of that, you can be deleting. Okay, so one more thing is what get. Get is going to be simply retrieval of data. So like this, you have 4 different types of methods. A get method, a put method, a post method, and a delete method. We'll discuss about those later, but just I'm explaining you. So the server is going to be getting these requests from the browser. In response to browser request, the server is going to be responding back if the request is correct. If it's in the correct format, it can respond to that. Okay, so here full stack developers have the capability to develop applications from start to end, or you can say end to end, because a full stack developer has hands-on experience on both server-side technologies as well as client-side technologies. Need not have experience, but they should have actually the knowledge. Okay, both server-side development as well as client-side development. The developers have to know both server-side as well as client-side. In such case, we call them as full-stack developers. Okay, once again, I'm saying here client-side meaning is what? HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You may be using some kind of frameworks, Angular or React.js or Vue.js. You may use them. So in such cases, you need to know about those frameworks. Fine. Along with that, you have to know about TypeScript. It is actually superset of JavaScript. But JavaScript is very loosely typed language, whereas TypeScript is strongly typed language. What is strong typing? What is loose typing? Further we discuss. But note down these points. Okay. Even before I explain, if you go through the internet, if you search in the browser also, you can get information related to that. Fine. So in this case, what is happening? A full stack developer has skill in developing front end as well as back end. That means they have skill set in front end as well as in the back end. That means the full stack developer has to know about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then some server side coding. It can be anything. In our case, it's going to be Java, but it can be Java, it can be Python, it can be Go language, it can be ASP.NET, or it can be Node.js, or it can be like you have Ruby on Rails kind of thing, or it can be many things you have, Rust kind of thing also you can use. So there are so many languages actually available these days. Using them, we can develop web applications. That's going to be server side. Also, you have different types of databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, similarly, SQL Server, and many other NoSQL databases. Databases can be SQL based or NoSQL based. Okay, so in the case of the SQL, it has to follow structured query language. So using structured query language standards, if a database is developed, so that is called as basically SQL database. In the case of non-SQL databases, it may be document centered or document based. We just save actually JSON data in that. What is JSON also we understand later. JSON basically stands for JavaScript object notation. Okay, so JSON also basically whenever you want to share information from one system to another system, you can use JSON, something like XML. Okay, so these are again domain specific. Mostly to present and to render data and to structure data, we use both XML and JSON. Okay, so a full stack developer requires skill set both in the front end and in the back end. So what are the popular stacks we see in the next one? We have popular tech stacks like in the front end. I have shown them vertically here: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Angular, React, Vue.js, and many more you have. Okay, but mostly these days, people are using Angular or React. Angular is from Google, React is from Facebook. Okay, so you have, Angular is from the Okay, so Angular is from the Google, whereas React.js is from the Facebook. Okay, so Facebook is totally written in the React.js. Fine. Apart from this, you have many other things also, but mostly they use these things. Whenever you want to develop single page applications, Angular or React or Vue.js, we can use. Angular is complete framework. React is just library. Okay, so Vue.js is also nothing but a library, but for simple websites, you can use it. Okay, if the application is very big, in such case, on Angular is the best option. Okay, whereas React is what? React actually has a lot of productivity, but the learning curve is going to be, it takes a lot of time actually. It's not steep. Okay, so it is basically takes a lot of time to learn actually React.js. Whereas Angular, to develop Angular, if you know TypeScript, you can do easily with the Angular. Okay, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript. When you develop an application using Angular, what exactly you do? You use TypeScript to develop front end. And when we compile, at that time, what happens? Whatever you write in the TypeScript will be converted into JavaScript. So therefore, TypeScript is basically preprocessor. Okay, you can think it as actually preprocessor. Similarly, you have, CSS, and one more thing is less. They are called as, cascading style sheets preprocessors. So SAS and less also are converted to CSS. Okay, they have many advantages when compared with the CSS. So therefore, these are basically for the front end: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, whether you become Angular developer or React developer or Vue.js developer, so that is secondary, but basically you have to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They are bare minimum for front-end developers. Next thing is what here? Angular, React, Vue.js, and many others you have. Okay, so in this again, a full stack developer may not have much control over CSS. CSS is mostly for the designers, not for the developers. A designer basically can develop better looking layouts, better color selection, better font styles. So the designer can give us. So developers mostly interact with the JavaScript. Mostly they write the JavaScript. So with that, your pages can become dynamic. And web pages can be dynamic or they can be static. So if it is static, you don't require any JavaScript. You don't require at all any JavaScript. So just whatever content you have, you are going to present to the visitor of the site. In the browser, that can be getting rendered. So you don't require any JavaScript if your application is only static web pages. It's containing only static web pages. That means it's mostly information centric. When you don't have any interactivity for the user. In such cases, you can make it as static pages. You don't require really much server-side coding in that case. Just you can create HTML pages and CSS. You can dump actually in a hosting server. So with that, you are going to connect to the domain name. So using your domain name, people can access it. If it is static web pages, if it is dynamic, in such case, definitely you require JavaScript or you require some server-side things. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to backend, these are the full stack, .NET based or Java based, PHP based, Ruby based, or Python or Node.js. Okay. So you can take here HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You can map this with .NET or with Java or with PHP or with Ruby or with Python or with Node.js. That's up to you. Okay. So this is called as loosely coupling. You have a loose couple concept. You go in this manner. You have HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So with that you are writing code. So in such cases, the backend can be .NET or Java or PHP or Ruby on Rails or Python or Node.js. It can be any server-side technology. Okay, again, when it comes to database side, you may be using .NET as a primary platform. In that you may be using VB.NET or C#. With that, what you do exactly? You can connect to databases. Again, it can be any database. Need not be always SQL Server. Okay, it can be SQL Server, it can be Oracle, it can be MySQL, or it can be PostgreSQL. The choice is yours. Same thing with the Java as well. You can take Java. So Java can be connected to any database here. So it applies to all the backend programming languages. .NET is a platform, Java is a platform, PHP is a language, Ruby is a language, Python is a language, Node.js again is a language for developing server-side applications. Node.js is basically a JavaScript here. It's a platform for developing, server-side applications, and for managing some other things we use it. So it's basically Node.js. So using Node.js, and in that you use a framework called Express. With the help of that, you can develop server-side applications. Okay, you use Node.js and database can be anything here. So SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL. So totally, this is going to be having a concept called loose coupling. Okay, it can be loose coupling. So what happens? Suppose you developed HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, initially you have gone with the PHP. As a proof of concept, you develop using PHP. But PHP is not good for your requirements. So therefore, in such case, you want to change actually into some Python or .NET. So in such cases, without disturbing already written HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can change the backend technology. Similarly, you can go to different database as well here. Okay, so this concept is called as loosely coupled applications concept. Okay, various parts in this are actually loosely coupled. It's not tightly coupled. In contrast to this, you have tightly coupled languages like JSP, Java, JSP. It is tightly coupled. Similarly, you take ASP.NET Web Forms. It is tightly coupled. So if you go with the Python in the Django, you may use Jinja templates. So in that case, that is going to be tightly coupled. But when you go with API, Web API, so it's application programming interface. And if you go with actually microservice architecture, in such cases, what happens? It's going to be loosely coupled. Anytime you can change front end, or you can change back end, or even you can change the database. So as per your convenience, you can do it. Okay. But before you start developing your application, okay, you need to choose proper backend technologies. It's very important. Basically, that's the role of the architect. Okay, architect is going to decide what language one has to use, what language has to be used, what database has to be used. Okay, all languages are almost same these days. They have equal performance. Okay, almost all they have equal performance. But here we bother about actually ecosystem. For example, take .NET or Java. It has got good ecosystem. That means many people they are available on that. For executing your task or your application very quickly, you can go either with the .NET or with Java because many professionals are available. Suppose you want to do with the Go language. Of course, Go has many advantages when compared with all these. Okay, but you don't find good ecosystem with the Go language. Very few people know about the Go language. You don't find resources in the Go language. So in such case, to develop quickly your application, definitely you need to know, you need to use a platform that has good ecosystem. And in the future, if you face any problem, So some kind of support, if you can get, you need to go with that technology. As I told you, almost all these are same with few, with few limitations. Okay, otherwise they are equal because everyone is continuously improving their product. New features are adding, they are adopting new things, they are making them more safe and secure. So almost all of they are actually are par, they are same in my opinion. They may have few things maybe in particular language Java you take, you may have few specific things in the Java, same may not be in the .NET. Similarly, in the .NET C Sharp, you may have few specific kind of things that may not be in the Java. Okay, so even such things you can develop on your own if required. So this way, you need to choose proper backend as well as database. The front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, in that case, that is fine. But for developing SPS using Angular or React, again, you need to see the ecosystem, whether you get actually proper manpower or not to execute the given project. Okay, so it is basically taken care by the decision support people, decision support system people in the company. Developers, they are going to code on that. Whatever technology they ask you to use, you are going to simply use. Okay, so but architects, they have to take that particular decision. So in this, what we use, HTML we use. HTML is hypertext markup language. It is a DSL, domain specific language for creating web pages. A web page is a well-defined structure of HTML elements which are responsible for rendering content in the web browser. So using HTML elements, we render content. Rendering is nothing but actually showing. Okay, render is sometimes sending onto some other device also, we can say. We can render a document to printer. So in that case, it's going to be getting printed on the printer. So rendering can be showing in this case. We send to the device, and sometimes songs are also rendered. Okay, rendering is beautiful. This way, whenever if you have seen any kind of actually reality shows, singing shows, in that case they use word rendering. So rendering basically meaning is what, sending to some output device and delivering the required output from that. A song singing is also rendering only, showing something on the screen is also rendering, sending something into printer and getting printed is also called as rendering. Okay, so these HTML elements are responsible for rendering content in the web browser. A web browser is a software application using which we can access content from World Wide Web. Okay, World Wide Web is basically web only. Okay, it's part of internet. So web page meaning is what here? It uses HTML, CSS, JavaScript. With that only they can be developed. A web browser is nothing but it's a software application which must be available in the client system. Okay, you need to install web browser. So in the web browser, you can actually see the content which is available in the form of the web pages using World Wide Web. So that's why before your site name, you have a prefix called www. That means what? World Wide Web. But these days, what is happening? People do not have patience. They don't want to type that www. So in such case, they are removing it. Whenever you attach with the name servers, at that time, we just skip actually www. So people are really so much impatient. They don't have time to type www. So they just want to type the website name. It should be getting rendered. They have become too lazy also, in my opinion. Okay, technology is making us lazy a little bit. So that should not be the case. Fine. So this is what exactly HTML is responsible for, creating web pages. Okay, so you have in this various elements, with the help of elements, you can create the HTML web pages. The next thing is CSS. So CSS is basically cascading style sheet. It is a sheet style language for providing styles, layout and design for HTML pages and its elements. For that we use it. So style sheets can be inline, internal, external, or default. Whenever you define a HTML element, along with the element, if you define a style, that's called an inline style. Otherwise, in the same HTML page, if you define a style, it's called an internal style. So that style you take and apply with the elements. Similarly, external. External meaning is what? In a separate file, you write the styles. Then you are going to refer that in the current web page. So when you want to use same style in more than one page, in such case, put that style in the external style sheet so that you can apply with all pages wherever you require. Or it can be default. So browser is going to be, every browser has its default style. When no styling is actually available for the given element, if you don't put any style for the given element, by default style, it can be getting rendered. Okay, so this is basically full stack. Sorry, CSS. The third part of this is JavaScript. It is a scripting language. Okay, and it is what actually a dynamically typed language, and it's a loosely typed language again. Okay, and it's not strictly typed language, loosely typed language. That means you have a variable. To that variable, sometimes you can assign a string, sometimes you can assign a number, sometimes you can assign a date. Okay, so you can assign any type of data to variable. So that's why I'm calling it as loosely typed. In contrast to this, for example, take Java. If you declare a variable as integer, always you need to assign only integer value. You cannot assign string or you cannot assign floating point value. That's why we call it as strictly typed language. Whereas JavaScript is not strictly typed language. But if you want to impose strict typing, in such cases, you need to go with the TypeScript. So TypeScript is what it is actually. I mean, it is strongly as well as strictly typed scripting language. Okay, it is superset of actually JavaScript. So using TypeScript compiler, you can generate ultimately JavaScript. But whenever you talk about any web page or browsers, they know only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whatever else you may be using, ultimately you need to convert them into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whatever framework you may be using, you may use React, you may use Vanilla.js, or you may use Vue.js, or you may go with Angular, whatever it may be. Ultimately, they have to be converted to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so for that you require preprocessors or compilers. With the help of that, we compile into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so this is basically JavaScript can be used to validate user input in the web pages. Also, it can update HTML content. Dynamically, you can change content, you can change the styles. So all those you can do with the help of the JavaScript. JavaScript has actually many frameworks like jQuery you have, Vanilla.js you have. Okay, so similarly, Node.js is one such version. Then Angular you have, Ember you have. There are so many versions of actually JavaScript. Depending on the requirement, you need to use them. That means ready-made code is available to us. So that code you need to download and keep in your, application. Okay. Then after that, what happens? So that code you can use for your application. Instead of rewriting it, a framework is available. So that framework you have to use for your application. Okay. Many JavaScript frameworks are available. As per the requirement, you can use them. Okay. So using JavaScript, you can change content dynamically. You can change styles. You can do some kind of animations. Okay, and even you can validate input, and also sometimes you can get connected to server side without loading page again. Without reloading page, you can get connected to server side, and from there you can fetch data and partially you can update the screen. So that's what you can do with the JavaScript. Okay, see, and next thing is what here Angular. In the full stack I've shown you. Angular is a JavaScript framework which is open source and is mainly used to develop single page applications. Angular code is written in TypeScript and has a set of TypeScript libraries used in web application development. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Unlike JavaScript, it is strongly typed language. When Angular code gets compiled, generates styles and JavaScript files for us. So therefore, Angular is a preprocessor for JavaScript. It's a framework. Okay, with the help of that, ultimately you can develop web pages, you can develop CSS, you can develop actually like JavaScript files. So this is basically a SPA, single page application. A single page application contains multiple views. Depending on the requirement, you can load different views or you can show different views. So first time it's going to load everything. It's going to load all the views, but all the views will not be shown to us. Whatever view you select, that view can be shown. So initial loading can be slow in the case of Angular, but once loaded, it can be working instantly because everything is available in the browser. Okay, so it's mostly for the single page applications. So fine. So this I gave some idea because I'm going to cover Angular in this. In the full stack development, I cover Angular. So this is related to basically front end part. Now I want to show you few HTML pages, how they are written. Okay. Fine. So I open a folder called Sureka. So in this, first of all, I would like to show here some clock. So I'm going to show some clock in this case. It is going to be a clock which is getting displayed. This is a clock. With this, what I'm doing, I am showing actually the clock in a digital manner. That means it's not analog clock, it's a digital clock. So here in this case, it's showing the current time. It's not showing any date, it's showing actually current time. IST is showing here, Indian Standard Time. 20 hours, 45 minutes, and 46. So this keeps on changing for once for every 1 second. If I want to stop, I can stop this using here some JavaScript. It is stopped. At 53 seconds, actually it stopped. Again, when I say resume, it's going to be getting resumed. Okay, so this way what is happening, I'm making it interactive. So with the help of this interactivity, what is happening, whenever you want to stop clock, you can stop, and whenever you want to resume, you can resume that. So this I have done using actually JavaScript. So what is inside this, let us see. So first of all, we look into some clock here. Okay, we go with the clock page. So in the clock page, what it is, we see here. Now, let me close this page. So then here I render this folder. So in this folder, I select that folder. So in this folder, I have so many pages, HTML pages, which are already created. So in this, I have a clock. So in the clock, what is happening exactly? The HTML, you're going to start with the HTML tag. This is the starting tag, and this is going to be closing tag. That means it's a container. All other elements of the HTML must be written within the starting HTML tag and ending HTML tag. This is called as a tag. A tag starts with a less than symbol. You have the tag name, and you have a closing part that is greater than symbol. Okay, this is for the starting tag. And for the ending tag, you have a less than symbol. You have a slash followed by here the tag, the element name. Then you have the greater than symbol. So like this, you have actually the element, HTML element. So this you can think as element, and this is what exactly a container. So inside this, you can have other tags. Okay, you have a head. This gives header information of the HTML document. In the header, we keep many things. We put a timer, a title. Similarly, here in this case, you can put other things as well. You can write some JavaScript, you can write some CSS, all the things you can do. I was talking about actually something like inline styling. I was talking about actually inline styling. So whenever you declare a HTML element and when you put here style this in this way, this is called as inline style. We call this as inline style. Along with the element, we are specifying style. So this you can think as inline style here. Okay, so this is rendering actually color in the blue. So sorry, the time is getting rendered in the blue color. You can see that in the blue color because I'm setting here style equal to color followed by blue. Okay, similarly, I'm writing here some JavaScript. Stop clock and one more thing is what resume clock. I have written both of them. And if you come down somewhere, you can find the functions for that. You have a stop clock. Similarly, you have a resume clock. With the help of that, this is basically working. So this is called as an event. Clicking is an event. When you click on that, this function is getting called. Similarly, when you go with the stop clock, in that case, the stop clock event is the function is getting called. So these are called as even basically events. Okay, so in this case, I'm using inline style. Similarly, I'm using some JavaScript. With the help of that, I have written this particular page. Okay, now let us create here some other pages. I mean, from scratch, everything now we are going to create. Okay, so here what I do, I can just close this folder. Then we create one more folder. Okay. So here in this case, I close the folder. Then I want to create here another folder inside the G drive. I want to name it as FullStack. I put it at FStack. Okay, so the page, the folder name is going to be FStack, and I want to load that here. So open folder from the Visual Studio. Now I should go to G drive. From the G drive, I'm going to load it. So here I type FStack. Okay, so it is coming up. Just click on this, followed by select folder. So in this folder right now, you don't have anything. Okay, you don't have anything now in this folder. So what you do, we can create here some HTML pages. Now, very first thing we create here, the page name is going to be home.html. I put like this. A new page I'm going to be creating in this case. Very first thing is here what I require some document header. Like I go with the okay, I can go with the doc type. It is HTML as per HTML 5.0. We are using now HTML5. So this is the document type declaration. Okay. Then followed by, we need to go with the HTML tag. Try to use the tags in lowercase letters. It's good practice to use in the lowercase letters. So what is happening? First of all, I have written something like here, starting tag and closing tag. This is called as here HTML element, which is nothing but a container. So this is the top level container. Inside this, you can have two parts. One is head, other one is body. In the body, you can put actually actual content. So let us go with the head part. You go with the head, and here I have a title. So for title, I want to write it as home page. I just want to put it as home page. It's going to be title. Then save this here. After that, I go with the body. Okay. Then in the body, now I can put various elements. Okay, different elements I can take and I can put here. I want to go with something like here H1. So this is an element. It's basically made for style. The headings. You have 6 headings: H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. Like that, you can have 6 different headings which are predefined. Okay, now let me go with the, I put like here heading 1. In the same manner, I'll go with H2. That can be heading 2. Okay, I can have here heading 2, this one. Okay, so this is going to be here H2. In the same manner, we put that. Then we go with the H3. So in this manner, you can have up to like 6 different headings. So what happens? It is going to be changing here. Okay, so 3, then 4, then 5, then 6 it is. But I need to change here. This must be H3. It's going to be H3, and here also we have it as H3. Then we have here H4. Okay, we go with H4. Then this also going to be here H4. The next thing is going to be here H5. Okay, then here also we keep it as here H5. The next thing is going to be here H6. So like this we have with different, okay, so with the different heading sizes, font size mostly in this case, it's going to be differing. I'm not keeping any particular style. So in this case, what style it's going to use? It's going to use in this case, the default style. Every browser is going to be having styles for different elements. For H1, they have their own style. Okay. Similarly, for example, div, they have their own style. For input, they have their own style. So here in this case, what is happening? We have, they have their own styles here. I have heading 1 to total 6 headings I have in this case. Now, let me render this here. When I render it, how they look, see here. So I should go to again here FStack. This is a folder name. So I open this folder and there is one page called home.html. This I'm going to be rendering. You can see with different headings. Heading 1, heading 2. This is H3, this is H4, this is H5, and this is H6. Okay, so these are what default styles they have taken. Default styles are taken. So default styles are defined within the browsers. Suppose same thing if you want to render with some other kind of thing. Let us see how it looks. Okay, so this is the page. Then I go with the Mozilla Firefox in this case. So I can go with the Mozilla Firefox. Okay, so here, whether it's available or not, I check. So I just come down in this case. So Mozilla, okay, MO. So it's not available in my system. Mozilla Firefox is not available. Okay, so I may go with the Edge in such cases. You have Edge browser as well. So let us go with the Edge in this case. So I go with the Edge, Microsoft Edge I want to launch in this case. So not now. Then here I put that. What happens? See in such cases. Okay. So here also it's looking same, but slightly the styling changes. Sometimes it may not be clearly understood, but depending on the browser, the styles may change. Default styles automatically they have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. Total 6 headings we have. Okay, now what I do, I can come to this and I want to apply some styles for this. For H1, I want to apply some style. How can I apply style here? One is what? Inline styling. The next thing is going to be here, internal styling. So default styling is coming automatically for us. Now I want to go with the inline styling. So in such cases, I can add an attribute here, style. This is equal to, I'll put it as color. This should be some red color. I want to show in the red color. Then similarly, I want to go with the font size. Okay. So it may have some default font size, but I want to increase the size to something like here, some 40px. It looks much bigger. And also I want to align to center. I can say text align. Okay, text align followed by, in this case, it is here center. Okay, like this, I'm going to be using this style. This is called as here inline style. Okay, for H1 only, this is available. Okay, now let me render this here, how it looks. But before that, see how it is looking. Everything is aligned to the left side. But now if you go with the head one, it's going to look with bigger font, as well as the color is going to be changing to red color. One more thing is what? It will be center aligned, not in the left aligned. So let me refresh here this one. Now what happened in this case? It is the font size increased much. Okay, and it's centered. And one more thing is what? Color has been changed for this. So what I've done in this case, I've gone with the, here my own style. That style is called in this case inline styling. So along with the element, I'm giving a style. So this type of styling is called an inline styling. Now come to internal styling. In the same document I want to use. So for that purpose, I have to use the style tag. With the help of that, I can define here styles. So inside the style element, you need to define the various styles, whatever are required. Okay, now here I want to go with the something like H1 followed dot H2, H3, H4. Okay, dot is not required. For all elements I want to use here H1, H2, H3, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So for these things, I want to define here style. So I just want to change only color for this. Color, I would like to go with the, in this case, something like orange I want to use here. Okay, orange color I want to use for all these things. And alignment should be right. I go with here text transform. I go with the text transform. In this case, it is going to be here uppercase. I can convert everything into uppercase in this case. So this is called as here internal style, because within the same document I have defined H1, H2, H3, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, and automatically for them, this is going to be getting applied. It will apply automatically for these things. Because using element names only, I have defined style. So automatically for them, this style will be available for us. So now when you see here, heading 2, heading 3, heading, this is having black color, but now it changes to orange. At the same time, what I have written style, so not a style actually, I just want to change the text into uppercase. So heading 2, heading 2, heading 2, all this must be coming in the uppercase. From here to here, everything must be changed to uppercase. So click on this. So why it is not working? I need to, I think, save this. Okay, so H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 I have taken. So for this, it must be applying the style. So why this is not coming? Let me see in this case once again by rendering it. Any problem? Why it's not coming? Here, developer tools I go and try to see. So there is nothing actually I'm not getting in this case. So what could be the problem? Let us see here. So I put a comma in this case. I'll go this way, H3, then H4, H5, and next thing is here H6. So this way I want to make the style here. Okay, now here in this case, now it is changing actually. When you have multiple elements, you need to separate with the comma. Everything is converted in this case into uppercase. So I transformed everything into uppercase. So this is called as basically styling. You can style the elements using, different kind of techniques we have in the CSS. So with that we can do. So in the whatever H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 elements you have, color is going to be orange and text transformation is going to be uppercase. So like this, you can actually change them. Okay, color is getting changed, text is also getting transformed. I'm not using any default color in this case. Okay, so default color I am not using. Similarly, alignment is going to be default in this case. Alignment is not changing. Alignment is going to be default only. Left side is getting aligned. So in this way, here I have actually created one HTML document and I'm rendering content. So this is basically HTML element, and inside that you have a head element. In the head, you have a title as well as style. Similarly, when it comes to body, here actually you have the content which you are going to show in the browser. You have H1, then H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So like this, we actually created a page called home.html that we are rendering. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll continue with the next session. Anyone has any questions, please?